One. Ready? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here to talk to you tonight about one of the most controversial persons that this country's ever had. This man's name is Benedict Arnold. Some will call him a patriot, some will call him a traitor. I will call him neither. Doing the research for Benedict Arnold, I came across two books. This one, written by a ancestor, his name is Isaac Arnold, and he wrote this thick book, and a lot of interesting facts in this book. This book, out of print. This is all about penny shipping, and I will talk about, as long as I can stand up here, about Benedict Arnold. Now, started in 1557 with William Arnold. He was born in Birmingham, England, and he came to Providence, Rhode Island with Roger Williams. And in 1630, they started establishing the Presbyterian Church in Providence, Rhode Island. And that was the first Arnold in the United States, or at that time was the colony, as you all know. Then, down the road, Benedict Arnold, numerous Benedict Arnolds. There wasn't only one. In this family, there was 5 Benedict Arnolds. Interesting. Now, William Arnold married Hannah Waterman, and she was the daughter of a sheriff in Providence, a highly respected lady. And William Arnold he was a tradesman, and he also did a lot of business dealings in and around Providence and was well established. He came along, he had 4 or 5 people in his family that were already here in the United States or the United Colonies. And the first child that he had was a Benedict Arnold. And he came along shortly in 1630. And Benedict Arnold, the first, he was a merchant and also a ship owner, had numerous ships. Providence was right on the seaport of Rhode Island. Then, along the road, numerous other Arnolds came on. Now, the main Arnold, his father was Benedict Arnold, like the third. And Benedict Arnold, he married a woman named Hannah. Her name was Hannah Mansfield. That was her maiden name. She was from Providence, and they came along and they had 6 children. Out of the 6 children, 4 did not survive to adulthood. But there was only 2. And along came January 14th, 1741. That's when Benedict Arnold, the main Benedict Arnold that everybody knows, was born. And he was born in Norwich. And from Norwich, Benedict Arnold, the first, came along. He had a sister. Her name was Hannah, who was named after their mother. So they did a lot of, as you know, did history or genealogy. Along the lines, there were numerous first names that followed. Like in my family, John, there's like 20 of them. James, about 20 of them. So the same thing in the Arnold family, Benedict Arnold, as I told you, there's at least 5 of them. And Benedict Arnold's father was a man that was a merchant. He did salesmanship in the Caribbean. He had ships, used to sail down and did his business in the Caribbean, sailed back to Connecticut. And during that time, became a drunk. And he squandered the Arnold family wealth. And 1761, he passed away. The mother of Benedict Arnold sadly passed away before him in 1758. And what happened to her, she got a disease, as we know, cholera. Back then, very deadly. So from there, Benedict Arnold was pretty much an orphan. He was 11 years old when his mother passed away. And he was sent to a family named Coswell. Now this is interesting. Coswell, they were prominent people in Connecticut. The Coswells were all over New England, and actually Coswell was my grandmother's maiden name. So doing research, I found that out. I've got to do more research on this. The Coswells, very well known. Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. I don't know too much about them. My grandmother passed away before I was born. So, I was born in 1946. She passed away in 1944. Never knew my grandmother. I never knew either one of my grandmothers. My earlier grandmother on the McCullough side passed away in 1934. So, let's get back to Benedict Arnold. So, with Benedict, he and his sister were the only surviving members of that Captain Benedict Arnold, who was like the fourth Benedict Arnold. He went off to this family called the Latrops. The Latrops were well-known druggists and merchants in Providence. They took Benedict Arnold in after the Cogswell family had him. So pretty much he was on his own most of his early years. He didn't really have a mother and father. What happened after that is the Latrops, well known and very wealthy, they sent him to school. He went to school and went to this academy in Providence, and then from there he ran away. He joined in 1754. He joined the American or the British Army, and he was a drummer, and he also carried some supplies. He was also taught how to shoot, and that was very important. At 14, he was very young. So after that, he survived the French and Indian War. And after that, from 1755 to 1770, he led a pretty prosperous life. He learned how to be a merchant. He learned how to sail ships. He even purchased ships. And he ran a business very successfully down to the Caribbean, where he was doing picking up sugar, bringing it back to New England, selling it for a high profit. After that, from 1770, we all know what started, was the Boston Massacre. He became a passionate colonial man that wanted to join the colonial army, and he did so. And he did that under the charter in Massachusetts that gave him a command, even though he's really never was in a military command. He went to Massachusetts, knew somebody there, and they gave him the command. He organized a militia unit. So, 1775, Boston Massacre happened already. He's got his company ready to go. And guess where they go? They went to Fort Ticonderoga. And who did he meet? Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys. Now, you think they would get along, right, guys? No, they did not get along. Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold had a big argument about who was in command. They were both equally the same rank, but unfortunately for Benedict Arnold, he was outranked by Ethan Allen and outnumbered in the militia because Ethan Allen's Green Mountain Boys were a much bigger unit. So they took over command, although the Americans did take Fort Ticonderoga very easily. British only had about 25 men, and they surrendered. And of course, we all know that the cannons were brought back to Boston at Dorchester Heights, and we're moving on real quick in the American Revolution. So that's the first really action that Benedict Arnold had. And he was very angry after that. So what he does, he goes back and he meets at Dorchester Heights. Who's he meet? Well, he met General George Washington, who took a liking to him and gave him the position of, promoted him actually from a captain to a lieutenant colonel. So he formed another unit since the enlistment time was up. And they have the new unit. And Benedict Arnold all along has an idea. And the idea he has, going to Canada. He says, we can take Canada easy. So General Washington said, I like that idea. So what does he do? He takes command of one unit. Now, Philip Schuyler, who was a big general in New York, up around Albany, he was in charge of this other command. Now, Schuyler was an older man and not in great health. And his command was taken over by General Montgomery. So now we have two armies commanded by General Montgomery and Benedict Arnold. So Benedict Arnold says, well, I think we should split the armies up. Montgomery, you go up to upstate New York through Lake Champlain and go right up into Montreal. Benedict Arnold says, well, I'll take about 1,000 men with me and we'll go up through Massachusetts and into Maine, and we'll come in from the east, going west, and we'll join forces, and we'll meet you at Quebec. So they go to Quebec, but that's much later on. Montgomery has an easy time going up Lake Champlain, all the way right up, gets into Montreal, takes Montreal in less than a week. The British surrender. They didn't have a lot of men. Benedict Arnold, on the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, had the toughest time of any military operation in the United States history had. And that was a dangerous trip, number one. He started off with 1,000 men. They started out, went up through Massachusetts into the rugged terrain of Maine. And we all know how good it is today. So imagine back then, in 1775, there's no roads, you're going through forests, deep forests, and the time that they set this exposition up was September 25th, 1775. Now we also know that that's a bad time to go up north, because it's only going to get worse. And Maine, they lost so many men, 500 men right off the bat. And who was with Benedict Arnold in his command? He had good men. Had Daniel Morgan. Daniel Morgan, great soldier. Who else did he have? Well, guess what? He had Aaron Burr. And he also had Richard Greene, the lieutenant colonel from Connecticut. He was very good. There was another general that was in there, a lower ranking guy by the name of Enos. Now Enos was another general that has a lot of background, negative background. He was court-martialed. And Benedict Arnold brought those charges against Enos. And I'll tell you why. After we trekked through Maine, he comes up and it's starting to snow in October. Deep snow. They wake up in the morning, they got 4 foot of snow outside their tent. They couldn't move. By then, they had already lost the canoes that they had because of the jagged rocks carrying them up. So there were no canoes. We had 4 feet of snow, freezing temperatures. So Arnold says, we got to split up our command. So he splits it up. He sends Green on one position to go out and look for food because food is getting scarce. From there, he sends Enos out, and he sends him back to get supplies. So Enos goes back south, gets some supplies. But the thing is, Enos never came back. He stayed there. He gave up. So Arnold never gave him a direct order to come back. So that was his excuse. So they're up. Now, we're already into early December. Arnold is waiting to hear from Montgomery. And Montgomery gets word to him, and Montgomery says, well, we took Montreal without any problems. We will reach you at Quebec early to mid-December. Arnold sends a messenger back and says, we will do our best to get there. So they get there. But when they get there, it's just before Christmas. Enlistments for the militia ended at December 31st. So Montgomery and Arnold make the decision. You have to attack. When do they attack? December 25th. Morning they started the attack, December 25th. Guess what? Another snowstorm. They 6 feet of snow. 6 feet of snow. Imagine that. We've just had a big snowstorm in January. Now we had another one in February. Thank God I wasn't here for that one. But imagine back then, they didn't have any coats. Arnold's men had basically no food. What they were doing, they were eating moccasins, boiling them in a pot. Montgomery had some food, and he shared it with Arnold. That's the only thing that saved Arnold's troops. Otherwise, they would have deserted. They would have left. They weren't getting paid. So, December 25th comes. What they do is they're going to do a two-pronged attack. Montgomery will come in from the west. Arnold will come in from the east. Now, with Arnold is Aaron Burr, Daniel Morgan. Green is not there yet. He did not get his troops there. So already they are down a company. So from there, they attack. But when they attacked, the snow started coming down real heavy again, and there was already 4 to 6 feet of snow there. And trudging through that slowed up the attack. And in doing so, that made the British and the French Canadians that were inside Quebec City. And anybody ever been to Quebec knows it's a wall city, even back then. Thick walls, not wooden walls like some of the old forts that you see on TV. This was thick walls. Arnold did not have any cannons. Montgomery's cannons were back in Montreal. They couldn't get there with the cannons because of the snow. They weren't as ingenious as General Knox. He put his on sled. So what happened was they do the attack. Montgomery makes it through, gets to the first barrier of the Quebec fort. Unfortunately for Montgomery, he gets shot right in the head. First shot. He's dead. His command pressed on with the attack. But with that, Arnold's coming in from the east. He gets through the first 2 barriers and had to climb over wooden barriers which were about this high. Arnold was in very good shape for a young man. What he did, he led the attack. He made it through the 2 barriers. Then he gets shot. And where does he get shot? Left leg. He lays on the ground. Aaron Burr picks him up, carries him back. The attack on Arnold's front didn't exist anymore. The men were frightened. They were getting moved over left and right. There was hardly any musket firing back. Muskets, it was so cold, they were frozen. They couldn't even fire. They had, of course, they had axes, and they had their hunting knives. So, let me take another step. So, what happened was, the attack on the fort, they had a retreat. Montgomery was dead, Arnold was wounded. Command was to who? Daniel Morgan. What happens? Daniel Morgan gets shot. Now they have no leader, they retreat. Now they didn't retreat all the way back. What they did is they set up a hospital for Arnold, and Arnold was conscious but in a lot of pain with that left leg. What happened is after that, from there, they just camped, tried to keep warm. They shared food with Montgomery's troops, and they stayed there, believe it or not. They stayed there 3 months after that. And they were living off hunting deer and anything else they could find. Finally, Arnold, after 3 months, he could stand, couldn't walk. They built a litter and took him back south after the defeat. So that was the first defeat that Benedict Arnold ever had, other than losing command at 4 or 5 times in a row. So from there, Benedict Arnold keeps on the move, keeps pressing the Continental troops to victory in various small skirmishes. And he, of course, has won more battles than General Washington. Now, Arnold would be in a lot of pain for the rest of his life with this wound. But worse, he's going to feel a lot worse after he gets to the Battle of Saratoga, which I'm going to talk about right now. Battle of Saratoga happened September 25th, 1777. That battle started with Arnold's troops, who was under the command of Horatio Gates and Philip Schuyler. Schuyler was off in Albany, and Gates was overall command. And Gates and Arnold didn't have a good friendship. They started off okay, but along the line, Arnold rubbed Gates the wrong way, and Gates rubbed Arnold the wrong way. So they were at odds. From there, we go to the first battle, September 25th, which was not at Freeman's. This one was at Freeman's Farm. And the Americans stood up to the British, did very well. But it was a draw. This was Gentleman John Burgoyne's troops. He had come down from St. Lawrence River, coming south into New York, going down from Lake Champlain. A lot of hazard for him because the American troops were basically cutting down trees, slowing up his route of attack on the Colonials. So from there, Benedict Arnold sets up his unit to defend against the British counterattack at Freeman's Farm. And from there, they were battling for a couple of weeks. It wasn't an easy battle. Americans lost quite a few men. British lost even more, believe it or not. Lost about 300 men. Burgoyne, getting worried. He pulled his army back to Bemis Heights. From there, in October, we're in October now. October, key month. Now, what happened was that Benedict Arnold found some trouble in Horatio Gates. And Gates confronted Arnold, took him off his command. And what he did is said, Benedict Arnold, you're not going to be charged in anything. I'm going to keep you in your tent, and that's where you're going to stay. So Arnold listens, very upset, very emotional. He's cursing, swearing, left and right at Gates. Of course, men see this, and they're starting to get upset and getting worried about who's going to be in command. Well, what happened was Benedict Arnold, on October 20th, decides, I can't stand this anymore. I'm going to disobey orders. Give me a horse. I'm going to get out there, and I'm going to lead his troops. And what does he do? He leads his troops to victory. That's what he does. But guess what? Who took credit for that? We all know it was Horatio Gates. He was in his tent. He was drinking. While Arnold was out there getting shot again. And guess where he gets shot? Same leg as up in Quebec. He's in real pain now. He fell off his horse. They rounded him up, carried him back to his tent, and he comes back with his pistol, his sword. He's ready to kill Gates. He was so upset. So from there, Gates finally gets the surrender, gets the sword from John Burgoyne, who at this point, he started off with 1,500 men. From 1,500 men, he went down to about 500 to 800 men. British really lost a lot of men in that battle. It's amazing how many men they lost. And the credit also, besides the charge that Arnold did that threw the British back, Daniel Morgan and his sharpshooters did a fabulous job. They killed a lot of British. A lot of British. So from there, Arnold's now, he's bedridden. He cannot walk. He can just barely stand. So what he does, he recuperates. And in the interim, General Washington says, well, Benedict, you did a great job. But I got bad news for you. You're not going to get promoted to a major general. So Arnold became very upset about that. And Washington told him basically, if it was in my power, I would have promoted you. But unfortunately, the Continental Congress decides who's going to get promoted. Meanwhile, the Continental Congress approved 5 generals who were junior to Benedict Arnold. So Arnold's enraged now. He says, what the hell is going on? I'm killing myself here. I've been shot 2 times. My horse was shot and fell on me. And I'm not getting any command or any respect. This Continental Congress is crazy. So he's recuperating. General Washington says, well, Benedict Arnold, I got a nice job for you. Cushy job. I'm going to send you to Philadelphia. And you can be the connoisseur of the city of Philadelphia. It's an easy job. You don't have to do much. So Arnold says, well, I'm really a fighting general, but I can't stand. So I will accept the position. So he goes off to Philadelphia, and he's there, and he starts mingling with the town folk that are left after the British left, and he starts making contacts, business contacts. So from there, he decides, well, I'm kind of lonely. My wife just passed away about 2 years ago, and I have 3 children, one of which is a Benedict Arnold, one's a Harry, and another is Richard. So what he did, he said, well, I have my sister Hannah, she's not married. I'll let Hannah watch my kids while I'm recuperating here in Philadelphia, and that's what happened. So Hannah took care of the 3 Arnold children, and from there, we get some more water. Very dry. Talking fast, folks. Talking fast. All right. So, Benedict Arnold has an eye for women, young women. He had a woman up in Providence named Betsy Dubois, who was a young socialite in the town, and he was infatuated with her. The problem was that she was 15 years old. Arnold, of course, was probably about 30 at the time. Didn't work out. Betsy's mother would not permit Arnold to date or even have anything to do with Benedict Arnold. And what happened from there, Betsy gets engaged to a merchant, supposedly. We don't know that for full fact, but that's what happened. She was supposed to get married, and then somewhere along the line, that broke off. But Benedict Arnold, being the wise guy that he is, he says, well, I'm going to go after her again. So he tries again. And he's thwarted by the mother again, and finally gives up. He says, this girl ain't worth it. So from there, he's in Philadelphia now. He's in command. And he says, well, let me look around for some young ladies. I'll go to a dance or two with them. And who's he pick out? Well, picks out a young lady who's 15 years old. And her name is Peggy Shippen. And she is the daughter of a loyalist judge named Edward Shippen. Edward Shippen is pro-loyalist. He's a judge in Philadelphia, and the people in Philadelphia aren't happy with Edward Shippen. Now, the interesting thing I found out, this is a town in Pennsylvania named Shippensburg. It's west of Carlisle, which is pretty much where my ancestors, Red War ancestors, lived. And Shippensburg is named after Edward Shippen. Interesting. Didn't know that until I read the damn book. So from there, Edward Shippen has no like for Benedict Arnold. He's a general in the colonists, in the colonial army. He, of course, supports the British. He raised his daughter, Peggy, who is a beautiful young woman by the times. She was involved with a fellow by the name of John Andre. You all know who John Andre is, right? Well, he was an officer for the British, and he was a captain, later promoted to a major. And what happened was they had sort of a romance before Benedict Arnold got involved. Now, Benedict Arnold sees this girl and says, man, she's beautiful. I got to have at least a dance with her. So he goes, and they have a big party going on in the Shippen house. Arnold introduces himself, and Peggy kind of likes Benedict. And what happened? Down the road, they start seeing each other. And on the slide, actually, the father didn't know about that. The mother did. Peggy's mother did know about it. So eventually, they end up being romantic involved, and they end up getting married. So you have Peggy Shippen married to Benedict Arnold. One's a loyalist, the other is a patriot. All right, down the line. I'm going to skip a lot because I'm getting tired. All right, so what happens after that? Well, they get married. They have 3 children. The first one is named after Peggy's father, Edward. So it's another Edward Shippen. And later on, Sophia is a daughter, comes along. And then there's 2 other boys by the name of Richard and Henry. But that's much later on, but we'll skip. What happens after that is Arnold is very disillusioned by being passed over again by lower-ranking generals, and he is upset with the Continental Congress. Peggy puts this bug in his ear. She says, you know, I know an officer in the British Army, and his name is John Andre. I can make contact with him, and maybe we can get you some money, and we can get you a position in the British Army. Arnold listens to this, and he says, I don't know about that. He says, no, I love this country, and I love the Army. I just feel I've been disrespected. Continental Army is my lifeline. All right. So what happens is after that, there's a guy in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. His name is Joseph Reed. Now Joseph Reed was an adjutant under George Washington. Reed was named the governor of Pennsylvania. And what happens? Reed despises Benedict Arnold. He puts the bug in the ear of the Continental Congress. And again, Benedict Arnold's passed over. Now, he's really upset now. And not only was he passed over, but Joseph Reed says, Benedict Arnold, he's manipulating the market. He's taking a lot of money and putting it in his pocket. And then, not only is he doing that, but he's got a lavish house up on the hill. And that's true, he did have a lavish house. But he didn't use the money that he got from the business dealings that he was doing. So from there, Peggy gets to Benedict Arnold again, tries to put in his ear. Benedict, maybe you should consider switching sides. So Benedict says, well, let me think about it. I'm not real happy with the British either. But we'll see. So months go by, and now we're in 1780. Benedict Arnold, being passed over again, finally gets to be a major general. But he's still an underling to the junior generals that already passed him up. A lot of them very inept compared to Benedict Arnold. Benedict, of course, is still in a lot of pain after all these years of inactiveness in Philadelphia. So, Peggy comes to Benedict, says, well, I know you got promoted, but what are you going to do next? So he says, oh, I'm going to continue being in charge here. I'd like to get a command from General Washington, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Well, a month goes by, General Washington comes up, he says, Benedict, I got a perfect job for you. He says, I just got you out of the trouble you were in Philadelphia. Instead of a reprimand, I'm going to send you up to West Point, New York. We're building a little fort up there, which will stop the British from coming down the Hudson River. So Benedict says, well, yeah, I kind of like it here in Philadelphia. But, you know, if it could lead to a promotion, I'll take it. So that's what he does. He goes off, leaves Peggy in Philadelphia with the children, and he takes command of West Point, starts building it up. And what happens after that? He's lonely. He misses Peggy, misses his kids. And it's only him up there, basically. So, at this point, he's a lonely man. He decides, well, maybe I should go down and take a ride down to Philadelphia. And he made his mistake because he didn't tell anybody. So he left his post and went back to Philadelphia. Goes back to Philadelphia, spends about a week, leaves West Point unprotected at this point. So, somebody comes up, tells General Washington about it. Washington writes a reprimand to Arnold, saying, you should have let me know you were leaving. And Arnold is enraged with the reprimand that Washington wrote him. So, what happens? You have a question? Oh, okay, so you raise your hand. So, what happens after that? Arnold, at this point, is enraged with George Washington. And Peggy visits up to West Point with the kids. And at this point, Arnold is really mad. And Peggy says, well, you know, you gotta calm down. You're too excited, you're gonna get sick. Arnold says, I'm already sick. I'm sick of this Continental Army, and I'm sick of George Washington. So what happens? He says, you know, that idea you came up with, I'm gonna take that. See if you can get in touch with John Andre. And she does. So they set up a meeting for late September, 1780. And at night, in the dark, in the woods, Arnold and Andre meet. So we all know what happened. I'm going to skip some of it, but I'll tell you the main part. They meet. Arnold promises to surrender the fort, West Point, to the British, and also General Washington, who's going to be up there in 2 days. And what happens was that Andre says, okay, we've got a deal. General Clinton, no problem. We'll make you an officer in the British Army. We will pay you money, and you will be able to take over your own command. That's what happens. And what happened? Andre, of course, was late, missed the ship, the Vulture, the British ship that was going to take them south back to New York City, where the British had their Navy base. Arnold goes back to West Point, and next thing you know, Arnold gets word that John Andre was captured by 3 militiamen on his way back to New York City. And in his boot, he had the plans to West Point. So, what happens after that? Arnold is supposed to meet George Washington the next morning for breakfast. Arnold has his breakfast, but in learning that, he says, I gotta get the hell out of here. You're gonna hang me. So, what he does, he has Peggy with him and the kid, one kid at this point. The other 2 were back in Philadelphia with Edward Shepard. So, what happens after that? Arnold skips out about an hour before General Washington gets to West Point. He gets on the Vulture, meets Clinton, takes off his uniform, folds it neatly, and puts it in a trunk in his cabin that was waiting for him. Folds it nice. Then he puts on his British redcoat uniform, and now he's a major general in the British Army. Meanwhile, George Washington gets to West Point, and Alexander Hamilton's with him. So Peggy is there in the bedroom. She is pregnant with another child, Benedict Arnold. She went crazy. And this was an act. She was the greatest actress ever for pulling this off. Any other general and Hamilton would probably have taken her out and hung her. Not General Washington, being the gentleman that he was, and Alexander Hamilton, being the gentleman that he was. They both fell for the story. Peggy said, I don't know anything about it. I don't know why Benedict's not here. Then Washington tells him, well, we learned he defected. He went with the British. He's on the ship, the Vulture. And he goes down, and she's hysterical. She's crying. She's on her knees. And Washington is a big, tall guy. He says, get her off me. Hamilton, you take over. He walks out of the room, goes back downstairs, starts having his breakfast. Hamilton, being the gentleman that he was, put her back on the bed, says, you gotta calm down, I'll get one of my aides, and we'll get Lieutenant Colonel Franks in here, Franks was an aide to Benedict Arnold. So they were close at this point. Peggy knew Franks. So taking care of Peggy was the main job of Franks. Franks was almost put under arrest by General Washington because he figured anybody that close to Arnold knew what was going on. Later proved French didn't know anything. So Arnold's on the ship with Clinton heading back to New York. Peggy still screaming and yelling up in the bedroom. And General Washington's having his breakfast and says, I can't stand this screaming anymore. I gotta get out of here. So he gets out of there, and Arnold, believe it or not, is very upset that he left Peggy there. But that was his only choice for escape. They couldn't take Peggy with them to get to the ship. They couldn't take her being pregnant, and with little Edward, who was there along with Peggy. So we're almost to the end, folks. Getting tired. All right. So here's what happens. Benedict Arnold, a major general now, what he does, he attacks a fort, Griswold, in Connecticut. That's his old stomping grounds. And they burn the town, and Arnold was a little upset that they burned the town, but the British, you know them, they're butchers. They'll do anything that they can to destroy. They've done it numerous times through the years of the Revolution. So Arnold's riding his horse, goes down the street, sees the old lady that he knew, Mrs. Henson. Mrs. Henson was a friend of Arnold, and her husband was a merchant with Arnold. So he's telling her, she says, well, can you save my building? It's right down the block. So Arnold says, yeah, I'll give orders. You don't worry, you're not going to get hurt, and we'll save the building. So meanwhile, Arnold is still on his horse. His left leg is aching because he's in pain for the two wounds that he had in the same leg. And that leg almost was amputated twice. Fortunately, he survives that somehow. So what goes on, transpires, is that Mrs. Henson goes in, gets a flintlock pistol, takes it out, starts to shoot Benedict Arnold. But guess what? Misfire. Or else Benedict Arnold would have been shot dead right there. He survived. Another escape by Benedict Arnold. Smart man, right? All right, so they take over Fort Griswold, piece of cake. Continental Force is very small in Connecticut. Arnold goes on another mission that General Clinton decided to send him on. They go to Virginia. Virginia, great state, right, guys? Virginia. Who's the governor of Virginia? A guy named Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson is the governor, and he's where? He's in Monticello. So he's there. Arnold moves west, wants to get Governor Jefferson, and he almost did. He missed him by 15 minutes. Jefferson went riding out of there as fast as he could. Arnold took over Monticello, did not burn it, and the British held the city of Charlottesville for a short time. They took all the supplies that they could, went back towards Williamsburg. Arnold gets on the ship and meets General Clinton back in New York. Another successful operation by General Arnold. So we're now almost at the end of the war. Now, you all know Yorktown was the final battle. Where was Benedict Arnold? Well, he wasn't at Yorktown with Cornwallis. He was in New York with Clinton. So, I am almost done. That's the good news. All right. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I could talk to you for hours. I know time is dwindling. But what happens? General Arnold passes away in England. He's buried in a Presbyterian church in England, and he's 60 years old, still in pain from the 2 bullets in his leg, and leaves a lot of debt. Peggy Shippen Arnold was frantic. She's 40 years old at this time, and she's paying off the debt slowly. Arnold, after the war, had a lot of business dealings in Canada. Did a lot of lumber trading. He also had the Caribbean, and that's what saved Peggy a lot of money, the Caribbean, with the sugar and the molasses. So I will conclude now. Anybody have any questions?
Wow.
No questions.
Where'd Peggy's shipping end up?
Peggy Shippen ended up being buried in England, in London, right next to Benedict Arnold. They were in an unmarked grave in the beginning. In 1976, when I went to England, I saw the grave and they put a tombstone. The family put a tombstone in. Arnold's sons were all British officers. A couple of them died in India, and one died in Jamaica. So that's the end of the story, guys. Hope you enjoyed it.